Money Map, sponsored by the Alliance for Lifetime Income. I'm your host, Jean Chatzky. Very glad to have you along with me today. As always on this show, where we discuss issues related to your finances, your life, often your retirement. We welcome your participation in this conversation. We are broadcasting on Facebook, we're broadcasting on LinkedIn. If you're here, say hi. Let me know what you're thinking. Let me know what your plans for your financial future look like. And stop by and ask a question of my fantastic guest today. Today, Chris Heye is with me. He is a PhD and CEO and founder of Wealth Care Solutions. Wealth Care Solutions and Wealth Care Planning are companies that sit at the intersection of health and wealth. And Chris is a proven entrepreneur with extensive experience starting and growing technology companies. He's got his own story to tell us about confronting dementia in his own family and witnessing elder financial abuse. And he decided along the way that not enough was being done to protect older adults. He helped design a clinical study at the Massachusetts General Hospital, which investigated the behavioral and the cognitive underpinnings of sound financial decision making. He's here with us today. He's going to tell us all about all of those things. Chris, welcome. It's so nice to see you.
Hi, Jean. It's great to be here. Thanks for having me.
Thank you so much for being with me. So before I get into sort of the meat and potatoes of the conversation, I'd love to know more about you and your story. I mean, clearly you were shaken up enough by what happened in your own life to really shake up your career.
Yes, I have a unfortunately extensive personal family history with dementia. My grandmother had it, and then my mother had it, and her sister had it. Um, and I saw what a toll it takes on the family. Financial toll we can talk about later, but obviously also a very large emotional toll. And then so I had that experience. My mother died now a couple of years ago, but she had dementia for several years. She was in a memory unit. She was started off in an assisted living facility, and then one morning I got a call from the assisted living facility manager, and they said, "We found your mother." This was like in December or January. "We found your mother sitting outside at 11 o'clock at night."
Oh, I'm
And
so
she didn't
sorry.
know
That
why
is,
she got there, but they said she can't stay here anymore. Because as many people know who have family members with dementia, when they start wandering and leaving the house, it's scary as all get out when that starts to happen. So anyway, I had that family history, and I'm also fortunate to have a really close friend, Dr. Tony Weiner, who's the head of geriatric psychiatry at Massachusetts General Hospital up in Boston. And obviously he's does this kind of work all the time, works with older adults, and just we decided that we should try to do a study. And he sees financial abuse in his clients. He sees and just really bad financial decision making in his clients. So we decided to do a study, and then we got some interesting results, and which I can talk about later. And then I just said, well, this is important stuff, and not enough people are talking about this. Not enough people are talking about this relationship between health and wealth, particularly between sort of cognitive capacity and behavioral characteristics and sound financial decision making. Let's do something about that.
well, it sounds like you found yourself at the crux of a very, very important problem, actually several of them. And also um, in the midst of what I've witnessed to be a growing interest in the topic of financial wellness, not just for older adults, but for people all along the spectrum. Can we start there? What
Yeah.
is financial wellness? How would you define it?
Yeah, I think, it's a really important topic and people are talking a lot about it. I guess I feel that it's most often defined too narrowly. When most people talk about financial wellness, they talk about having a savings plan or having a budget or an investment strategy. And that's all great. That's all really important to have. But to me, that's just sort of the beginning. That's kind of the foundations of financial wellness. I actually think of wellness as almost like a hierarchy. I don't know if some of you might be familiar with Maslow's hierarchy of needs. And
Yes.
it's, and yeah, so to me, it's kind of like that. And actually, people want to look, I've written an article in the Journal of Financial Planning about this. So the idea is that when most people talk about financial wellness, they're talking about sort of at the base of the pyramid. So sure, you need to have, and I call that organizational wellness. But to me, financial wellness has obvious physical, behavioral, and mental components to it, right? Everybody, it's not rocket science to say that your physical health can have severe consequences for your financial wellness, right? I mean, I think high
Right.
healthcare costs a health event. And as we found out in the Massachusetts General Hospital clinical study, behavioral and cognitive health can also have a major impact on your financial wellness. So my point is that financial wellness is really should be more broadly construed, should be seen as more of a hierarchy, because again, and I've seen this happen with unfortunately with friends. You can have the best financial advisor, you can have the best investment strategy, you can have the perfect financial plan. Someone gets dementia, or if someone has behavioral issues, all that can go out the window, and it can go out the window really, really fast. So that's why I say having a good financial plan is great, but to me, it's kind of necessary but not sufficient.
So, in your mind, if somebody says, okay, I would like to achieve financial wellness, or even if they don't say it, but they think it, what are the first of all, how do you know if you have it now? Right? Are there questions you can answer to know if you have it now? And then what steps can you take to get there?
Sure. I mean, again, at the organizational level, there are things you can do. Do you have a budget? Are you tracking your savings? Are you paying your bills on time? Do you have an investment? If you're working with advisors, do you have an investment policy statement? Do you understand your risk level? All that stuff. But again, there's a lot of other layers beyond that. You mentioned this financial wellness. What I'm seeing is that there's some tools out there now, financial wellness tools, but for me, what I see, they're mostly for actually younger adults. I think there's not enough tools, not enough energy and resources being directed towards helping older adults achieve financial wellness. Because I think
When
that, go ahead.
when you look at the pieces of financial wellness for an older adult as compared to a younger person, how is it different?
Yeah, I think that, financial wellness to me also is not like, it's not like, okay, I'm financially well now and I'll always be financially well. It's really a continual process, right? Because life changes. Financial wellness when you're younger can mean, making sure I'm paying off my student debt or making sure I'm saving for a house. And when you're in middle age, it can mean, oh, can I afford my kids' education? Can I buy that? But as you get older, it sounds funny. It sounds funny when you say it, but when you're older, you're less healthy, right? So
Right.
as you get older, these health-related issues become more and more germane and more essential to your life. And so, the statistics show that 80% of adults over 55 have some sort of chronic illness. So as you get older, to me, the biggest threat to the financial security of most older adults is not a stock market correction. It's not inflation. It's a health event. It's a healthcare cost.
I
So,
agree with you. Yeah. No, I
so
agree
those
with
are
you.
the biggest risks.
And I think when we look at the curve of spending through our lifetimes, it basically agrees with what you are saying. When we look at our spending through our adult lifetimes, it climbs as we're raising our kids. It peaks as our kids go off to college, but then they leave the nest, right? Maybe we are fortunate enough to have been in the same house for a long time. We pay off the mortgage. We have some additional free cash. We can travel a little bit. And spending starts to tail off until the end of life when healthcare expenses drive our spending back up again. It's something that Debbie is going through right now. She writes that she's going through this with her mom. She has dementia, and it is such a difficult situation. She doesn't have enough money to afford a nursing home, and yet she has too much for Medicaid. So Chris, I'd
Yeah.
love to ask you about a situation like Debbie's in a couple of ways. First of all, can you address what she's going through with her mom right now? Are there practical solutions to deal with that scenario? And then if you're a little younger, if you were Debbie and not her mom, or for somebody, my age or your age, how do we plan so that we don't end up in that situation like her mother?
It's a difficult situation, and I don't know, Gene, if you saw, there was a recent article, I think in the New York Times, about the woman who heads up the caregiving division at AARP.
Yeah,
She
no,
just
it was
went
it was in the
bankrupt.
Wall Street Journal.
Wall Street Journal, yeah. She just went bankrupt because she had to be as a result of having to take care of her parents. So that just shows you how difficult this situation can be. I mean, basically, there's things you can do proactively, and then I'll talk a little bit more about the reactive. I mean, of course, it's always better to be proactive if you can. So in the case of my mother, fortunately, I had siblings to work with, and we did things early, like making sure my mother had a power of attorney. So, for example, the power of attorney, if you do nothing else, if you get nothing else out of this conversation today, make sure if you are any family member, especially a family member over 50, make sure they have a power of attorney. Power of attorney is something that enables other people to make financial decisions on your behalf. And if
And
someone
I
has been,
and generally you need two, right? You need a power of attorney for financial decisions, and you also need a power of attorney for healthcare. It's sometimes called a medical directive or a healthcare proxy.
healthcare proxy is those are the two most important documents. And maybe the third one in my mind is what's called a living will, or something that helps lay out what you want to happen if and when you get to a state where you're cognitively or physically unable to make decisions, or even getting close to the end of life. So those are three critical things to do. And the nice thing about those things is they're not that. A power of attorney and the healthcare proxy is a page long. It's not 12 pages. It's like a half a page. Power of attorney is usually like a page long. So living will can get a little longer. But the idea is they're simple documents. They're cheap to free. So you can do that proactively. There's other things you can do, like putting a credit freeze. Unfortunately, another problem with older adults is they're more and more susceptible to financial fraud.
Well, this was something that you went through as well. So tell us what happened to you, and then let's talk about how to avoid it.
Yeah, and fortunately, it did not happen to me personally, but I had two friends. One that both lost millions of dollars. Parents lost millions of dollars. So not tens of not thousands, it's millions of dollars. In one case, there's a friend of mine. Father was, I think, and he wasn't that old, 69, 70 years old, went in for routine heart surgery, went wrong, right? And so he wasn't quite right afterwards. They didn't really know, but within months, millions of dollars were gone.
What
They were
happened?
just gone. It turns out he had mini strokes. And my friend's, so it's my friend's father, her brother was a doctor. So it's not like the little old lady, this image we have is this little old lady down the street. He had some mini strokes, and he was just making really bad decisions. They're still not clear if he was, scammed per se, but he was making really bad decisions. And then within a very short period of time, all the financial, my friend said it got so bad that they actually owed taxes. So
Oh
they
my
not only
goodness.
lost all their money, but they had to pay additional money because none of that, the capital gains taxes weren't handled properly.
One of the things I think people don't necessarily understand is that when we start to worry about memory issues, when we start to worry about dementia, it often shows up in the financial management. What finances that people have said to me, finances are one of the first things to go. Why is that? And if you are thinking, A, I don't want to be scammed, and B, I don't want my parents scammed, how do you put protections in
Yeah.
place so that there's some sort of a barricade around your financial life?
Yes. Well, this is something that we found out in the clinical study at Mass General Hospital and at the time we did this study, there was a lot of discussion about memory loss and the effect of memory loss on financial decision making. And sure, if you forget to pay your bills or you pay the bills twice, but I always intuitively thought it was more than that. And what we found in the study is that there does seem to be a link between good financial decision making and what psychiatrists refer to as executive function. So if executive function is that part of your brain. It's kind of like it's the executive. It's the part of your brain that controls impulses, that plans, that organizes. And so, unfortunately, when as we get older, a lot of times those parts of our brains break down, and so it's not surprising then. What does financial management take? It takes a lot of organization. It takes a lot of planning. It takes impulse control. So there's all kinds of statistics now that suggest that there was one study that said that financial mistakes were found 5 or 6 years, I think, before an official diagnosis of dementia. So that's really one of the first signs. If somebody's having trouble managing their finances or balancing their checkbook. I don't know if people really balance their checkbook anymore, but those can be real warning signs. And in fact, there was a really important study done at Harvard that tried to estimate the peak age of financial decision making. And I think
what did they
your
say?
audience will be maybe shocked and saddened to hear that it's 53. It's not 63,
Wow.
it's not 73, it's 53.
That's unbelievable. I mean, I'm 57 years old, right?
Yeah.
I mean, that means I'm past my peak
Yep.
financial decision making. So this
on average, you're probably different.
But it coincides with the time in life where people actually tend to have money, right? It coincides with your peak earning years. It sounds to me a little bit like a perfect storm.
Well, this is exactly the logic that was driving the study that we did at Mass General Hospital. At the time, we were also working with a finance professor at MIT. He had to drop out for a variety of reasons. But that was his main point, is that we have these two curves that are kind of going in the wrong direction. So as you mentioned, people, as they get older, they tend to have more and more money, up to a point. But in your 50s and 60s, you probably have the most money you're ever going to have. And then after 53, your ability to make financial decisions on average goes down. So you have these two curves. So you have the people have the most money they've ever had in their lives when they're increasingly less capable of making good financial decisions.
So what's the answer in terms of making the best possible decisions that you are able to for a long period of time? And also, sort of wrapped up in that question is the question of, as we're living longer, right? Because I think the one thing people don't understand about longevity is that the longer you live, the longer you're going to live, right? The number of people who are passing 85 and 90 and 95 and 100 is going up, right? So you need your resources to last a longer period of time. And that may include a long illness. Dawn writes, we did everything. We have the attorney involved with legal documents in order. My parents had long-term care insurance, but that insurance is only good for 3 years. I stretched it out to 6. But my mother, who has Alzheimer's, has been suffering with this disease for over 20 years, since 2004, with no end in sight. She has too much money for Medicaid, not enough for a nursing home. I, the daughter, am doing everything I can, but there is just not enough help. I've lost 10 years and I think she could go on. And I think there are many, many people in that situation. So as we get tactical, let's start with fraud, because I don't think we answered that question.
Right.
When it comes to protecting your life or your parents' financial life from fraud, what are the steps to take?
Yeah. So first of all, making sure you have that durable power of attorney. And then, at a high level, as in case your parents, as they get older, you really want to have a team, because at some point, none of us should be making important financial decisions. Virtually none of us. As we said, after 53, for most of us, it's already getting sketchier. So you want to have a team. You want to have the kids involved, and the way to get the kids involved is, again, you have the power of attorney. You give them access to financial accounts. So you're a co-signatory on these accounts. So you want someone to sort of making sure you're monitoring, the spending, because the spending, again, this stuff can happen quickly. So you want to get hopefully some trusted family members. You want to make sure they're trusted, because I don't want to go into too much detail, but unfortunately, sometimes the kids are the perpetrators of the scams. But assuming that the kids are trustworthy, you want to get them involved or get a friend involved, get a financial advisor involved, get an attorney involved. You want to have a team. You want to have a team. You got to monitor these things on an ongoing basis. And one thing you can do to help you monitor these things is there are companies like this company EverSafe, for example. They have fraud monitoring software. It's kind of a LifeLock for fraud monitoring software. It's not expensive. You can put that on. You could do a credit freeze because that'll prevent people taking out, starting new accounts in your name. So things like that. But at a high level, you need to you need to be vigilant because the problem with these behavioral and cognitive illnesses is and I'm sure our listeners have seen this. For a while, mom can be doing okay, she's doing okay, and then like the next day, it feels like it's very discontinuous. It's like a step function of math. Things can fall off a cliff really quickly. So you really need to be on top of it. And again, you can use technology. That's our company has, assessments that can help you plan for this. And again, if you can, to the extent that you can be proactive and not reactive, it's really important.
And those assessments that you're talking about, Chris, from WealthCare, are those quizzes things that anybody can take?
Yes, anybody can take. You can go to the website. There are, you can go to a financial advisor. And we have, as you know, we have a mini version of that. Probably the first step is the mini version we have that's on the Alliance for Lifetime Income site. It's a quick little 7-question financial wellness assessment. But what we're trying to do is try to collect some information on a person, and it can be a person, it can be the mom, the dad, and then basically say, okay, here's some steps you need to take. You're doing well here. You're not doing well here. Here's, we give you little scores and we give you recommendations.
It's a little bit of a roadmap to follow. And I think
try to give you a roadmap and we, we call them sort of next best actions. But again, it gets back to my, view of financial wellness. A lot of financial wellness is, it's kind of, there's a lot of P's involved. It's, there's prevention, there's being proactive, there's being protective, there's being, and most importantly, being prepared. And those are the kinds of things we would like to help you to do. I just want to get back, to some of these issues. My heart just bleeds for these people because I've been through it. And it's, I don't want to make too big a deal out of it. It's a crisis in our country.
Yes.
Because as you were saying, Jean, people are living longer. To me, that's a huge game changer. When you think about, 20, 30 years ago, or maybe a little more, but not much more than that, most people didn't live much past 65. They didn't. Remember, I remember thinking like 60 is ancient. My grandmother turned 65. Now I have friends who are 65. It's like, they're not, they don't.
They're not old, right?
They're not old.
Let's not even bring ancient into the conversation.
Yeah,
they are
no, I know. So now people, but my point is in a generation or two, we've gone from people, not living much past 65 to, as you say, people living to their 80s and 90s. And to me, that's a complete game changer. And, we've done a really good job. If you look at some of the statistics on, like deaths by heart attack, I mean, we've done a great job of, doing, this amazing cancer treatments now. So we're doing a great job of keeping people alive. Unfortunately, the huge but is dementia.
Right.
There's nothing. So people can live longer. We can keep them alive, but our brains, when we were evolving, we didn't need a brain when we were 65 because we had died of cancer, or we died of a spider bite, or an appendicitis.
So I think the other big but there is the financial fortitude to handle it, right?
Yeah.
You can live a very long time, hopefully without dementia, possibly with some dementia. And you don't want to get stuck in this squeeze between not being able to afford the care you need and not being able to qualify for Medicaid or other assistance. And that requires planning. I know that you think that there's a mismatch between the planning that is being done and the planning that should be done. Can you talk about the kind of planning that we need to be doing, and how do we find a planner to help us? Are there specific questions that we should be asking in order to get us there?
Yeah, again, I think, as you get older, the biggest risk to your financial and retirement security is not market related, it's more health related. So what we need to do is do a better job of managing those health and what I call health and longevity related risks. So, so for example, if you're looking to work with a financial advisor, the first question you always want to ask is, are you a fiduciary? Because you want a fiduciary advisor is supposed to protect you from all financial risks, not just investment risks. But the second question is, are you primarily a financial planner, or you're primarily someone who manages investments?
Explain the difference,
Yeah,
because this is
yeah,
this is big, and let me throw the word holistic in there as well.
yeah. It is big, and I think a lot of us, even I assume that for many years, a financial advisor main job, or they perceive the main job, is to take your money and make sure that they invested it in a good way. Make sure that they made money, the investments made money, they match your risk tolerance, and that's most of what they did. For years, that's most of what they did. But increasingly now, the clients are saying, well, that's great, but I need more planning. I need, how do I need more help on the saving side. I need more help on the expense side. I need somebody to say, okay, in 3 years, am I going to be okay? In 5 years, am I going to be okay? Can I afford to buy this house? And so the industry is kind of shifting, probably not as fast as I'd like to see it, but it's starting to shift now. So you're getting more people who do that. And as you probably know, computers are getting better and better at doing things like managing investments. So that's, in my opinion, a lot of the better advisors now are saying, okay, I can use, all these nice new, index funds and computer algorithms to make sure that the investments stay on track. But now I'm going to focus on my client. I'm going to focus on you, focus on your concerns. And so anyway, when you want to have an advisor that's like that, you want to have an advisor that says, yes, I'm a financial planner. And then you can say, great.
I'm a financial planner and I'm a fiduciary. So what's the next question?
And then the next question is, so what type of planner? Can you help me with, what is your approach towards, estimating healthcare costs and long-term costs? Do any of the sort of estate planning, which deals with these things like the power of attorney and wills and trusts? Do you do wealth transfer? Can you, we work with my kids to make sure that stuff gets passed to them in the way I want. So that's something. So it's a planner. What type of planner? And the other thing is, you want to ask, like, how frequently do you communicate with your clients? Because as we said, things can happen fast. So you want a really proactive advisor who's going to be, in close communication, or as much communication as you want from them. You want to make sure they're going to give that to you.
And I think particularly now that's a really important point, right? We're going through this incredibly volatile period in our world history, also in the markets. There are inflation numbers that we haven't seen in 40 years. There's just, pandemic. There's a lot going on, and you should be able to, I think, count on your advisor to be talking you through these times.
Yeah. I mean, that's what people want. They want an advisor who really understands them and really understands their specific needs. And that's and there are plenty of I know some really great advisors who that's what they do. And so you really want to, that's sort of step one, is to find that person who can do that, provide those services for you.
One of the terms that I've heard you use is scenario planning, that you want to envision a number of scenarios and you want to make sure that there is a plan in place to deal with them. And clearly, needing long-term care is one of those scenarios. For many women, the scenario that we are trying to avoid, because we've seen the longevity statistics, we know we're going to outlive you guys, is that we don't want to outlive our money. Is that a scenario that you think that planners should be actively working on?
Absolutely. I mean, you alluded to it earlier. I mean, most of the big expenses at the end of your life are, healthcare related, and 80, 90, whatever percent of the money you ever spend on healthcare is spent on the last few years of life. So you want to have an advisor who's thinking in those terms. And again, I know some of those. And in terms of scenario planning, most people prefer to live in their home, right? Stay in their home and live out their life, live and die in their home. My mother wanted to do that. I can't tell you how many times she said, I'm going to die in this house. But that's not unfortunately, that's not feasible for two really important reasons. Not always feasible. Sometimes it's feasible, but one is just safety reasons. I mean, I had literally had nightmares about worrying about my mother. We had these really steep steps going down to the basement where the washer and dryer was. And I just said, Mom's going to fall someday. And at the bottom of the basement, there was cement. And I just said, that just freaked me out. But then it's just financially, unfortunately, living at home can be really expensive, especially if you need, a lot of care. It's really, I know people who have had I know many people have had, decided to have a family member stay at home, but they needed 24/7 care. And, it's $25-$30 an hour.
Right.
So that's like $700 a day. So my point is that's one scenario. Usually the cheaper scenario is to move to assisted living facility. And there they'll get 24/7. With someone with dementia, they have to have 24/7 care. I told them about my mother walking outside.
Yeah.
So, you have to find some way to keep them safe and affordable. So again, those are usually the two big scenarios, right? Stay at home versus, move to assisted living.
It's interesting here you talk through this, having gone through it yourself. So if you were going to create a list for people coming out of this conversation, people who've been listening or who are watching on the repeat. And of course, you should all go to our website at the Alliance for Lifetime Income. The address of that website is protectedincome.org. For this conversation, you can go to protectedincome.org/Heye, Heye, and you can find out more information about Chris and the wonderful work that he does. But if you were going to come out of this conversation with a to-do list for people, 3 to 5 things that they should do now so that they're not in a panic later, what would they be?
Yeah, I mean, again, just get those simple legal documents in place. So get the power of attorney, get the healthcare proxy, get the living will. So you want to have something that helps govern the decision-making, the financial and the healthcare decision-making. That's job one, I think, and that can be done very easily. And again, put together a team. If you're in the family, I think we did a good job in my family, interfamily communication. Try to get the family members involved. I know it's not always easy, but try to get all the family members on the same page about how they want to deal with their parents. Start thinking in terms of scenarios, if you're worried about your parents, start looking around at assisted living facilities in your area. Start thinking about, we haven't even talked about this, alternative transportation. Maybe, show your mom or dad how to you use Uber or Lyft so they're safe when they're driving. Make sure your family members have access to good medical care. We haven't talked about that too much either, but it's really important. They need to, physical safety is really important. Do that. And if you're worried about financial fraud, do those things like get on your parents, be a co-signatory. They have an account at Fidelity or account at Bank of America, whatever. Make sure that you can call Bank of America and say, hey, did mom just do this? And they'll say, yes, I can talk to you. So, those are some of the things that I would do, and virtually none of those things cost money.
Right.
None of them
Right.
cost
And neither,
money.
by the way, does freezing your credit anymore. And I'm a big believer.
So just and again, this stuff it's hard to do on your own too. If you're just, if you're and it's usually the daughter, if you're the daughter taking care of mom or dad, it can be exhausting. Physically, emotionally exhausting. Don't try to do it. You need to get help. Put together a team. That's the other thing. Don't try to do this all by yourself because it's too hard, and you can end up spending money, and emotionally it can be very difficult. So, get help. And also get medical help. Talk to a psychiatrist. Talk to friends who are doctors. I mean, most of us know a doctor. Most of us know a nurse. Sit down and say, hey, mom's doing this. Dad's doing that. Can you help me out?
Absolutely. And for everybody watching, take Chris's financial wellness assessment. It's on our website at protectedincome.org. Again, you can find out more information about Chris Heye, about wealth care at protectedincome.org/Heye, Heye. Chris, this has been a pleasure. Thank you so much for an informative and interesting and troubling,
Yeah.
helpful conversation.
Hopefully helpful, Gene. And thanks so much. And I think this, as we agree, these are really important issues, and anything, I can do to help people, I'm more than happy to do.
Thank you. And thanks for listening, everybody. We'll see you next time.